Welcome to Accelerator Onboarding, Module 1. This is the first of 3 modules introducing you to the Agent Accelerator project and its core tool, Build Studio. By the end of this module, which runs about 20 minutes, you'll have a clear mental model of what Build Studio is, why it was built, and how its 14-step workflow is structured. You don't need prior experience with Build Studio to follow along. All you need is basic familiarity with AI concepts and YAML. This module is intentionally conceptual. It sets up the mental model that modules 2 and 3 will put into practice. Before we can appreciate what Build Studio does, we need to understand the pain it eliminates. If you've ever built anything for more than one deployment target, 2 cloud providers, 2 SaaS platforms, anything, you already know this problem. Every platform has its own configuration format, its own quirks, its own deployment pipeline. Microsoft Copilot Studio is not AWS Bedrock, is not Google Vertex AI. They speak different languages, use different toolchains, and require different mental models. The real cost shows up when a team finishes shipping an agent to Copilot Studio and then gets told, now we need that same agent on Bedrock. That's not a small lift. That's start over, redesign, retest, redeploy. 2 design efforts, 2 test cycles, 2 maintenance surfaces, and 0 reuse between them. A team that ships an agent to Copilot Studio must effectively start from scratch to ship the same agent to AWS Bedrock. 2 times the design work, 2 times the testing, 2 times the maintenance overhead, and no shared assets to show for it. That's the problem Build Studio was built to solve. Build Studio is the answer. It's a unified, 14-step workflow powered by Claude Code that lets you design an agent once, in a platform-agnostic domain-specific language, and then generate deployable artifacts for any target platform from that single source. 3 ideas on this slide are worth separating out. First, unified workflow, not a library, not a framework, but a guided, sequential process that takes you from blank slate to deployable agent through 14 well-defined steps. Second, AI architect partner. Claude Code isn't just running scripts. It proposes designs, suggests tool sets, and researches live platform documentation in real time. You bring the domain knowledge, the business problem, the constraints, the approval authority. Claude brings agent design expertise and platform-specific knowledge. It proposes, you approve. Third, Git native source of truth. The YAML DSL that Build Studio produces lives in your repository. It's version controlled. The platform-specific packages, the Copilot Studio solution file, the Bedrock scaffolds, are generated artifacts derived from that DSL. If the DSL changes, you regenerate. The design and the generated code never drift out of sync. Build Studio's 14 steps are divided into 2 phases, and the boundary between them is deliberate. Steps 1 through 7 make up the design phase. The purpose of this phase is to capture what the agent is, not what code it runs, but what it does, who it serves, and how it behaves. You define the agent's identity, its capabilities, its workflows, its external dependencies, and which platforms you're targeting. The design phase closes when you review and validate the complete DSL file. Steps 8 through 14 are the generation phase. With a validated design in hand, Claude transforms it into real, deployable artifacts, a Copilot Studio package, Bedrock scaffolds, Vertex AI Terraform files. The reason these 2 phases are separate is important. Design is human-centric. It's a conversation exploring the problem space, making decisions, adjusting requirements. Generation is machine-precise, a deterministic transformation of the design into platform-specific code. Conflating the 2 leads to half-formed decisions getting baked into generated code that's hard to change later. The DSL sits at the boundary. It is the output of design and the input to generation. It is what lives in Git. Everything else is derived from it. Here's the full 14-step flow in one view. The design phase covers steps 1 through 7. In it, identity, capabilities, workflows, dependencies, platforms, and review DSL. Each step is a distinct gate. You complete one before moving to the next. The generation phase covers steps 8 through 14. Generation mode, Copilot Studio, compliance, governance, Bedrock, Vertex AI, and complete. 3 design principles govern the entire flow. Just-in-time loading means that at any given moment, only the current step's instruction file is in Claude's active context. This keeps Claude focused. It isn't trying to hold all 14 steps in mind at once. Sequential enforcement means you cannot skip a step. If you're on step 3, step 4 is locked until step 3 is complete. And a progress bar is always visible. You always know exactly where you are across all 14 steps. These aren't arbitrary constraints. They exist because agent design has real dependencies. You can't define your agent's workflows before you know its capabilities. You can't generate platform artifacts before you've validated the design. The sequence maps the actual dependency graph of the work. Each step in the workflow corresponds to a single Markdown file in the repository, located under the Build Studio Steps directory inside the BMAD workflow folder. Step 1 is Step 11 init MD. Step 2 is Step 2 identity, MND, and so on through all 14 files. Each file is entirely self-contained. It includes the prompts Claude uses for that step, the validation rules for the step's output, and the output schema that gets written to the DSL. Nothing bleeds between step files. There's no shared global state that one step can accidentally corrupt. State is tracked in the DSL file itself, in its YAML front matter. The front matter records the current step number, the list of completed steps, and the agent name. This is what makes pause and resume possible. You can stop mid-design, return the next day, and Claude picks up exactly where you left off. Sequential enforcement is implemented through this state. When you trigger a step, the step file checks the front matter and refuses to proceed if its prerequisites aren't complete. Self-contained step files make the workflow easy to audit and safe to extend. State tracked in a YAML file in Git means there's no external database, no session tokens, just the repository you already have. A question that comes up quickly for new developers is this: Is Claude Code wrapping Build Studio? Or is Claude Code Build Studio? The answer is the second one. Claude Code is the engine. Build Studio is not a web application, not a separately installed CLI tool, not a plugin. It's a set of step files that Claude Code executes interactively in your terminal. When you trigger the workflow, Claude loads the current step file, reads the context, and starts a guided conversation. You answer questions, Claude writes the outputs into the DSL. It functions as an AI architect sitting next to you, proposing tool sets and workflow patterns based on real-time research into live platform documentation via MCP tools, while you approve, refine, or redirect every decision. The partnership is straightforward. You bring domain knowledge, business requirements, and approval authority. Claude brings agent design patterns, platform expertise, and DSL generation. Neither is sufficient alone. 2 practical points worth knowing. The workflow runs entirely in Claude Code's terminal, so no IDE plugin is required. And escape hatches are always available. At any point you can ask to see what you have so far and Claude returns the current DSL state, or you can go back to an earlier step and Claude reloads it. Build Studio currently targets 3 deployment platforms. Microsoft Copilot Studio is the primary target, with full production support. When you complete the generation phase, you receive a complete, importable solution package deployed via the pack CLI. It supports Microsoft Teams integration, web chat and SharePoint channels, Power Automate flows, and AI actions with generative answers. With AWS Bedrock and Google Vertex AI are both at proof-of-concept status. The Bedrock scaffolds cover action groups definitions, knowledge bases configuration, Lambda function scaffolds, and IAM role templates. The Vertex AI scaffolds cover agent engine configuration, tools and extensions, cloud functions scaffolds, and Terraform infrastructure files. Both are complete enough to validate the approach and hand off to platform specialists, but they're intended for team validation rather than production deployment today. The core value proposition holds across all three. 1 DSL, 3 deployment targets, future-proof agent architecture. As more platforms are added to the roadmap, you won't be redesigning existing agents. You'll be adding a new generation step to the same workflow. When you run Build Studio end-to-end, here's what lands in your repository. Under the Agents Design directory, you get the DSL YAML file, the platform-agnostic design that is your source of truth, alongside 3 documentation files, requirements MD, design decisions MD, and research notes on MD. The design decisions file is particularly valuable for long-lived agents. It records why each design choice was made, which is invaluable 6 months later when a new developer joins the project and needs to understand the architecture. Under the Agents Generated directory, you get the platform-specific artifacts, a Copilot Studio folder with the complete importable solution ready for PAX CLI, a Bedrock folder with the POC scaffolds, and a Vertex A folder with the Terraform and Cloud Functions scaffolds. The mental model is simple. Everything under the design directory is handcrafted and source-controlled. Everything under the generated directory is derived and reproducible. You can delete the generated artifacts and regenerate them from the DSL at any time. You never manually patch generated code. If the DSL changes, you regenerate. 5 principles shape how Build Studio works and how you should interact with it. Progressive disclosure means the wizard starts with the easy, enjoyable questions, naming the agent, defining its persona, before moving into technically complex decisions like dependency APIs and compliance configuration. This is intentional. It builds momentum before the hard questions arrive. AI-driven recommendations means Claude doesn't wait for you to have memorized every platform configuration option. It researches live documentation via MCP tools and proposes sensible defaults. Your job is to evaluate and refine those proposals. Escape hatches means you're never making decisions blind. At any time, you can ask to see the current DSL state. If you don't like where the design is heading, you can inspect it and correct course. Always show progress means the 14-step progress bar is always visible. You always know exactly where you are and how far you have to go. Never skip steps means the sequence is not arbitrary. Steps have real dependencies, and skipping them produces incomplete designs. The sequential enforcement protects you from yourself. The golden rule underlying all of this. Design is a conversation, not a form. Talk to Claude the way you'd talk to an experienced architect colleague. The richer your description of the problem, the better the agent design you get back. Getting started with Build Studio takes 4 steps. Clone the Agent Accelerator repository and open the project directory in Claude Code using the Claude command with a dot. Then trigger the workflow, either by typing @Build Studio in the Claude Code terminal or by using the bmad command. Claude will greet you, check whether any in-progress agent designs already exist in the repository, and walk you through step 1. For timeline expectations, the design phase, steps 1 through 7, typically takes 10 to 15 minutes for a simple agent. The generation phase adds another 5 to 10 minutes. Crucially, you can pause and resume at any step. State is saved in the DSL file, so if you need to step away mid-session, Claude will pick up exactly where you left off when you return. You don't need to complete all 14 steps in a single sitting. That's Module 1 complete. You now have the mental model. Build Studio is a 14-step workflow in 2 phases: design then generate, powered by Claude Code acting as your AI architect partner. It produces a Git-tracked DSL that drives deployable artifacts across 3 platforms with 0 duplication of effort. 3 takeaways to carry forward. Build Studio means 1 workflow, 3 platforms, 0 duplication. Claude Code is the AI architect partner, a design collaborator, not just a code generator. And the DSL is the source of truth. Generated code is always derived from it, never the other way around. Module 2 goes hands-on with the design phase. You'll walk through steps 1 through 7 in detail, while building a real agent from scratch, an IT support agent for BISTEC. Module 3 then picks up the generation phase, taking that same agent all the way through to a deployed Copilot Studio environment. We'll see you in Module 2.